What were the hopes going into this particular G7 meeting?
You know, it's very interesting, Vonnie, because yesterday the message was that trade is off the agenda officially. But this morning, when Steve Mnuchin arrived here, the U.S. Treasury Secretary said he was excited about the U.S.'s trade policies and mentioned trade agreement with China. So after that, all the talk was about trade today. They are now struggling to cobble together their communique, their message to the world as to what they have discussed and what they will continue to discuss tomorrow. And the problems that they face are the same as those that they faced at the Baden-Baden G20 meeting last month, namely whether or not to call for free trade and a stop to protectionism, or to use the U.S.'s language, more of a fair trade or reciprocal trade statement, and leave out the protectionism and leave out the mention of protectionism. So that seems to be the focus right now, as the ministers just retired about an hour and a half ago and are now going out to dinner in a nearby town on the Mediterranean, on the Adriatic coast.
So the U.S. Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin not too concerned about optics today. He didn't happen to attend part of a seminar on inequality. That was one part of the G7 meetings that he missed. But tell us why they're there in the first place when so many are going to change. So, for example, the French finance minister may not be the French finance minister very soon. You know, Britain's representatives are very possibly going to change as well.
That's true. The European picture could shift around. And yes, Steve Mnuchin came here, arrived about 2 hours after all of the other ministers. It was interesting. You can see the flags here behind us. The U.S. flag for the first couple of hours wasn't up there. Now, it may have been because of wind problems, but they didn't put it up until the Treasury Secretary actually arrived here. As far as the European flags up there, they will all obviously stay in the G7, but your point is a good one. Sapin, for example, from France, probably won't be the trade minister, the finance minister for very much longer because of the new government there. And a lot of people here in Europe are hoping for a tighter, stronger Europe, a stronger union between the European countries, especially, for example, Pierre Moscovici, the European commissioner that we spoke with yesterday, because of the election of Macron in France. And whoever we get in Germany, they're hoping that we see really more of a coming together of these countries. Of course, the issue of Greece could be still a sticking point. They're hoping to find a solution for that on May 22nd at the Eurogroup in Brussels.
Matt, any
Bonnie?
Ideas what the ministers are supposed to put into the communique when there is so little agreement on, you know, globalism right now?
They'll definitely talk about inclusive growth. That seems to be the phrase that they fall back on. And they're going to still struggle. I'm sure they'll be talking about it tonight with Steve Mnuchin at dinner. And remember, this meeting goes on tomorrow. We'll be staying here through the weekend, a weekend in Bari, Italy. And they'll try and convince him to get more with the program. Of course, the U.S. has come a lot closer to what the rest of the G7 thinks as far as global trade over the last couple of months.